Hi, I'm John Cuddeback.
And I'm Sophia Cuddeback.
If you're wondering whether you can really be friends with your spouse
and raise children into responsible adults with whom you have a relationship
and do what it takes to make a homestead, reconnecting with your body and the land wherever you live.
If you just want to think more about how to make a truly happy home in our trying times,
then The Intentional Household, a LifeCraft podcast, is for you. Join us. Well, I am so thrilled to have today Nell O'Leary, and I have admired Nell's works for years and am so happy just to have her today to discuss why personal pursuits still matter as a mother. Welcome, Nell.
Oh, John, it's such a joy to be with you.
I'm going to tell everybody who doesn't already know you, who hasn't bumped into you online or otherwise, a little bit about you. Nell O'Leary loves reminding people of their gifts and marvelousness. Her current work includes growing community for the Word on Fire Institute, contributing video content for Ascension Presents, promoting Friends of the Bridegroom, and writing content for the National Eucharistic Revival newsletter. She is an attorney turned writer, speaker, editor, and community maker. She has contributed to over a dozen books, edited 40 books, and over 3,000 devotional essays, led thousands of women in finding and building community over the past 2 decades. She and her husband live with their 5 children in St. Paul, Minnesota, with lots of chai tea to keep her fueled. Please check out what she's doing at nell-o'leary.com, and that will, of course, be in the notes. Again, welcome, Nell.
I mean, John, we've known each other for so long. It sounds so funny to have you read my bio.
It does. I know, isn't that funny? Life can be strange in that way. Everyone's bio looks a little different, and sometimes, we have a problem recognizing ourselves.
Who's that?
Well, the older we get, we actually have maybe done a few things. But in any case, well, no, I think you're in a particularly good position to reflect on this, and both because you have, this has been, of course, a great challenge for you. It always is for every wife and mother. It is in our day and age. How am I going to be that wife and mother that I want to be? But how do those kind of desires on my heart to be doing, we'll just kind of say, quote, other things, how do we fit that together? So, of course, you've been working on that. And, of course, you've been blessed to also be connected with many wives, mothers out there who also are facing the same challenge, and you get to talk to them about it. So through that kind of broad experience, I'm so happy that you're going to be able to share your wisdom with us. So I'm going to just jump right in and say, can you please just tell us kind of from your own personal experience, first of all, how does this go? Tell us a little bit about your story and how you have, through that story, an angle onto this issue.
It's so beautiful, John, to step back and think about what has God brought me through in this life to be able to chat about why pursuing things on your heart are important as a wife and mom, while still keeping that focus that your primary call, your identity as a beloved daughter of God, and then as a wife, and then as a mother, and then as caring for those who've been entrusted to you. Because that's central. So why would we say that it's actually important to also do other things? Because that kind of sounds like I'm already selling a side hustle. Sign up under me for $59.99. Like,
right.
Other things really means scrolling the internet and somehow making money for your family. But really, that's such a weird modern take on this, because we have these phones we're plugged into all the time. So at the heart of that is, what's going to help feed you as a person so you can continue to pour out for your primary vocation, for your primary call? Right. What's going to feed you so you can stay mentally, physically, spiritually balanced? And that's going to look differently for different people. So for my own story, my husband and I met in law school. So first, John, you and I met when my brother was in college with you like 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So fantastic. So my husband and I met in law school. And up until that point, I'd studied English. And when you have an English major, what do? Well, you either go on to teach, or as my parents like to remind me, work at a coffee shop, or you go on to graduate school. So I did go to law school, but all the time thinking, I really do believe God's calling me to be a wife and mom, but I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like. I need to be able to take care of myself. So this seemed like the next right step was pursuing graduate school. I really love law school. Most people don't like law school. I had actually a wonderful experience. And like I said, met
Hmm.
my husband there. Uh, I clerked for a federal judge after law school. And then Anthony finished up his last year of law school. He was a year behind me. And spending that time, even just almost a year apart, I was living in Las Vegas. He was living in Ann Arbor, preparing for marriage in that engagement period, thinking, Lord, you've given me these things I enjoy, which now we use this terminology of gifts. I've been given these gifts. This is my gift. But really, it was, you've given me these things that I really enjoy, Lord. I enjoy people and connecting with people and writing and sharing ideas and encouraging other people. How is this going to play out in my vocation, in this call to marriage? I really didn't know. Um, and we were blessed with children early on in marriage, just a couple of months into marriage, blessed to be pregnant with our first, who now is 14, going into high school. John, I don't know how that happened. It's, it's very fast.
Right, right.
It is very fast. So, looking through those early years of motherhood, I did work as a prosecutor when I was pregnant with our oldest, but very quickly realized like I physically am so ill when I'm pregnant. And
Mm.
even though I had family and friends who said, "Oh, we'd be happy to help you with the baby. You can keep on working," it just felt like my husband's job was very demanding. And I just wanted to be with my baby. So counterculturally to especially a lot of attorney women I knew who thought this is crazy. You're an accomplished attorney. You're going to stay home with a kid. What are you going to do at home with a kid? And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do at home with a kid, but I do want to be with my baby. We were able to make that work out. But those first hidden years, we had blessed with 3 children in 4 years. It was like this incredible blur of losing who I was in kind of a sense of desperation. I had accolades in the world. I had done well professionally. I'd done well in graduate school. And I was a tag in my early immature eyes, like a tag along to my husband, who's also an attorney. But we would attend things together, and I would like, oh, none of my clothes fit. I'm always postpartum, always nursing, like always carrying a baby with me wherever it was we were going, um, and feeling like I had lost myself. And I look back now and realize a big part of that is because I based who I was on what I did. I thought I
Mm.
was all of those things out in the world. So when I was so hidden with so many littles, and not a lot of community in the early years, having to find community, I had been basing that metric improperly. So those then
Hmm.
we had
Hmm.
four children, and then we're blessed with 5 children, and all along the way thinking a little bit through the lens of desperation, like I need to have some outlet. I need to have some lifeline because my husband's he's gone 80, 90 hours a week. I need to develop something that's going to give me oxygen. And I did things like sewing. I owned an Etsy shop. I ran a little Etsy shop sewing like baby goods and helping with women's ministry work and helping start things in my parish and finding ways to kind of have a lifeline. Um, and now, yes, our children are 3.5 up to 14. And my work does include all those things you mentioned in the bio, but really, I find that my time is spent constantly gauging like what needs to be done in my home first. Um, where are other areas that I can help and do things that feel meaningful and fit with that home life, but
Hmm.
trying to look in a more mature sense through the lens of I'm not what I do and my worth and value doesn't come from what I do, but what is God calling me to do right now and what is in front of me instead of grasping for something that's going to make
Right,
me feel
right.
better through the exhaustion and blur of those young years. Yeah.
Well,
That's a ramble, John, but
well, no,
hopefully that answered it.
you've set that up very well. And let's, I want to take you back and let's focus, I think, particularly on kind of the beginning. It really struck me in listening to you speak there that I think a lot of people, a lot of women getting married today are in a very similar situation that's a peculiarly difficult one when they're getting married. At least implicitly, they have this sense of, um, I hope that God blesses us with children.
Yeah.
And marriage is going to involve children, and that's going to be quite consuming. But at the same time, of course, they've been doing other things, and obviously have a whole set of personal interests. And there's they don't know how these things are going to fit together. And it just really struck me when I heard you say that. I saw those two things going on at the same time, And imagine, and I'm picturing my own experience of getting married, obviously up through the eyes of my wife, and just thinking, wow, could we do something to try to help there be better thinking about this when going in? And to some extent, it's just always going to be this way, because from beforehand, you just don't know how it's going to play itself out. And you don't want to be trying, you don't want to, for the sake of prioritizing being a wife and mother, not get into these other things that you're doing in life that cultivate these deeper interests, or you're studying, or you get these skills. And then, so how am I going to use them? So then there you found yourself as married. And just go back into that again a little bit, because I really think there's a bit to talk about how you thought about that. I'm really interested to hear, was there sounds like you hinted that you had something big to learn, even as regards prioritizing. How is this prioritizing going to actually play itself out? But take me to the beginning of the kind of confusion, and then the growing kind of dawning on you, I've got some big decisions to make here, how I'm going to handle this.
I wonder if part of it, those young years, well, pretty young. I was married at 26. My vision of marriage was that it was somehow this equal enterprise and partnership whereby each person got to do what they wanted to do and the other person supported them. And that's what made
Mm,
it fun, that you got to do your thing. You were cheering me on while I did my thing. We both equally did the same amount of housework. I don't know why I thought that, but thinking that like everything will be divided fairly and equally because I'm accomplished and you're accomplished. And the missing piece, there were many missing pieces, but one big one I do see now is I really didn't know what it meant to wake up and serve.
mm,
Like to wake up and serve. And my husband, well, John, that is his MO. He wakes up, he wakes up and thinks and says, like, how can I serve today? What does my family need today? He he has a hard job. It's not like he's gallivanting, having fun at work. He's working to serve our family.
yeah.
It doesn't serve his ego. It doesn't serve his desires for world domination. He's always like doing dishes in the morning or getting things ready to go or packing a kid's bag for swimming before he heads upstairs to do his work. He wakes up to serve. So early on, I didn't have that. I really thought, what am I going to do today that's good for me, that fulfills me? Whether that was driving while being sick, pregnant sick, on the way to the prosecutor's office, or this is like pre-social media, really. There was very little social media, thank
Mm-hmm,
God.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Or figuring out like, how am I going to feel satisfied today? And then increasingly, as I did stay home with our little first, feeling like these days stretch on endlessly. How am I going to fill my time so that I feel good? Of course, I was a loving mom and I was, nursing my baby and putting my baby down for naps and everything. But especially when you have your first baby, there are a lot of gaps in time if you're not working outside the home. There are a lot of gaps in your time where the baby's sleeping and you're surveying the damage in the kitchen. You're thinking, maybe I'd rather have a hot chocolate from a coffee shop. I'm going to go buy a hot chocolate for myself to self medicate, to think my days are so hard, instead of having a service heart. And I think that can get really contentious in Catholic circles or Christian circles. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like I'm saying this misogynistic comment that the woman is slaving away and the husband is her lord and master and she's a slave in her own house. I don't mean that. We mutually serve each other. But I didn't have that perspective. So that, not really wanting to serve, wanting to satiate and satisfy instead, combined with thinking my value is what I do. And right now, what I do is feed a baby with my body, try to make sure there's dinner when Anthony comes home, and then increasingly take care of a toddler and a baby, take care of a preschooler and a toddler and a baby, uh, which is thankless, unaffirmed, invisible work when you're at home and there's no one praising you. There's no one clapping
Yeah.
for you. You're not even wearing clothing necessarily, like day clothes, where you're wearing your pajamas still maybe.
Yeah.
Really seeking my pursuits at that time outside the home. We're seeking, I want to be seen and known and praised because I am what I do, and what I do is hidden. So let's find something that's less hidden so I can feel better about myself. And of course,
Right.
I'm being harsh on myself and overly simplistic, but there was a big element of just grasping for identity and purpose instead of being willing to see the deeper invitation to this hidden
Hmm.
Nazareth time in my life. It's just too uncomfortable for me. It was very challenging for me to really sink into that and just be where I was.
Well, but I can imagine that is super hard now. I mean, this
Yeah.
is the thing. I mean, when you said, and I do know Anthony, and he is an amazing man. But let me take this tack here. That hey, he's still going to be able to go out there. He's a lawyer, and so he has this service. He has this service attitude. That's great. But he's able, when he gets married, he's able to go out there and fundamentally keep to continue to do the set of things that he's had his eyes on doing. He's already started doing. It's kind of relatively easy, I think, for a man to picture beforehand. You know, these things that you get to just keep doing that are more visible. And whereas there's a kind of asymmetry here. You, as the woman, as the wife coming in, um, your service attitude has more this disappearing act aspect
Mm.
to it. So I mean it's beautiful that you're able to say, well, okay, he had more of the serving attitude. I needed to learn to have the serving attitude. But let's also be fair. It seems to me your serving attitude is going to now show up and demand of you something that, especially today, is very
Mm.
difficult because there's both exterior voices, and again, let's be fair, there's a kind of interior voice that's just saying, whoa, I'm just going to kind of disappear here, and why do I have to stop doing a whole set of things in
Mm-hmm.
my service here
Yeah.
that my husband in his service? I mean, again, you get bonus points as a husband if you're really good at changing the diapers and making the kids breakfast, or cook, and then boom, then you're kind of out of there, kind of whew, and everyone's going, wow, he's such a great dad. Then it kind of vanishes, right? Vanishes in the sense
Yeah.
of goes and becomes very visible, vanishes from home, right? And so I'm not trying to be unnecessarily hard on the man, but I'm trying to see this through your eyes and give it as it were, and give you the credit, and we need to recognize, to help a woman in this situation, there is that asymmetry, that difference. And there is a reason that she's even struggling with, okay, I'm willing to serve, but this particular form of service seems to involve a kind of giving up of the other things that I'm doing. And that's why, I mean, our very topic here is the importance, or how do we fit in kind of those personal projects or doing some other thing. So you think that's important, but you've begun with, um, and of course, I think fittingly, you're having to recognize that maybe that's your point. If you're going to be able to do these other projects, you have to kind of first wrestle with this deeper point. But I want to give due credit to that deep wrestling, and the difficulty in recognizing I have to give up all this. So help me understand from your viewpoint. Is it, am I seeing something there? Is there kind of a, you have to be willing to give it up and really reckon with that, and then you kind of come around to recognize, well, okay, but I can still have some of these other things. How does that work?
There's almost even another word that comes to mind, John, when you're talking about give up. It's this is going to sound extreme. I feel like motherhood is almost an annihilation, or like a holocaust of self. Not like capital H Holocaust, but like a little like a. It has for me, and I watched this with other young moms I knew. Again, accomplished women who had discerned for their family. They were either working part time or really stepping outside the work world in those early years. So not for every mom, not for everyone, but for women who had discerned that, like me, there almost had to be like a raising, like in the forest, when you have like a fire, like almost has to be cut to the quick, like to go all the way down to be able to be open to flourish and rebuild, because it's different. Anthony stayed on the same track. He had like 2 seconds of paternity leave and then he put his suit on and went back. I did not. I went, boo. And I do recall one time dropping him off, and he was at a law firm at that time in downtown Minneapolis. And I'm driving back to the freeway after dropping him off at his building. He's wearing a suit, he's got his briefcase, all the things. And I see all of these women wearing gorgeous suits, heels, with a latte in their arms and hands, lots of lattes. And I'm driving back to the freeway, and I'm wearing like his oversized t-shirt. And our baby's crying in the back of the car, and my milk lets down. And I'm just driving like, I don't fit any of my cute clothes. I don't have a latte. I'm definitely not squeezing into heels again. My body is responding to my child's cry, trauma response, and this is my life. Oh,
Yeah.
what happened to me? What happened to me?
Of course.
So that annihilation, it was real. And I think what helped me recognize during it, like, oh, this is necessary, was that I didn't have another way to be authentically present with my child. And I do know many women can cut it up differently, but for my personality, I'm kind of an all or nothing person. So when I thought, what am I giving up? I'm giving up a lot. I'm giving up my professional career. For some women, it's like a mommy pause, like I'm giving up this time when I could be really building professionally. But I'm also all in on what I'm doing, imperfectly, immaturely. I'm all in on this child. And I don't want to look back later. For me personally, I can only speak for myself. I did not want to look back and say, what was I doing that I thought was more important than this? I was flittering about, and even being at home with children, I've spent many times frittering about and not paying attention as I should have, as we all do, we're human. But this intense moment of realizing, like, I only have one chance with this baby as a baby. I only have one chance, and I've been blessed with 5 chances. Even now I look at our 3-year-old and think, well, you're not getting the same life the first got because you have so many other siblings. But if I take away things from you, I want to be conscious of what I'm removing. If I'm removing myself from this equation, if I go on a work trip or I take time to go and do something away from our 3-year-old, it needs to be something that's very worthwhile, because I'm cognizant that these are imprinting moments that I can't get back. I can't get them back. And maybe the Lord has a path for me to pursue, many things that are professional later, but this time I can't get this time back. So the combination of both feeling like I'm going to die in this oversized t-shirt driving to the freeway soaked, but also there's something here that I can't get back later. So it's worth being taken to the quick, cut to the quick, and looking at other women at a mom's group or wherever being like, you guys this is really hard. This is really hard. No one told us it was going to be hard, because we were told, like, you can have it all, you can do it all, but you can't do it all at the same time. So those early years of thinking, this is very hard. I'm glad I'm doing it, but oh my goodness, it's very hard. And being open to life is very hard if you're blessed without fertility issues or without loss. Very hard to have many small children completely dependent on you at the same time and not kind of lose your mind. And that's where I think talking about having pursuits that help you as a person sustain are important. And there's a blurring, right? There's a blurring of like boss, babe, side hustle. Someone on the internet's like encouraging you that what you're doing isn't enough. Like, that's not the case. It's not about side hustling. It's about having some pursuit that gives you a lifeline spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. For some moms, I know some moms who are amazing runners. John, these women are with their double strollers doing marathons. It's not me. Or other moms who do take up writing. They're writing these incredible books, or just pouring out of them, or ones who are artists, or ones who are musicians. It's not simpatico. What am I trying to say? It is important to use those things that are on your heart for the lifeline. I'm kind of all over the place, John.
Well, no, you're not. You're not. All right, so, but let me ask you this then. It sounds like I hear you say, well, I think, let's say this out loud. I think both of us are taking for granted that by a natural design for marriage and family, there is a particular need and thus a kind of a demand for, while both husband and wife need to give 100% and need to have a very service-oriented disposition, that there is this difference where a woman's oblation, there's a reason you call it a Holocaust. And again, while we both need to give 100%, there is this aspect here of that I think we all need to reckon with. Husbands need to see this. Wives need to see this, and they need to see it together, that there is a uniquely difficult, challenging a demand of a wife, given especially when seen through the eyes of the children. And we always have to be open to see what's going on there, right? In other words, I think implicit in what you're saying, you recognized that your children needed you in a specific kind of way, that you needed, if you're going to be the mother that you so desire to be to them, that absolutely demanded that you have to endure something like the story, the image that's going to stay with us, of you driving back from that Minneapolis law firm. But there was a reason for this. This wasn't random. This is rooted in kind of a plan of design of nature, in the needs of children, in the demands of marriage, that you have to make a particular holocaust, a particular giving up, and a setting aside, a kind of prioritization of the children that has a very concrete manifestation in your having to say no to a number of things in a way that a man doesn't.
Yes.
And it sounds like you're saying key was that you needed to see that and embrace that. Now we're still going to go on, and you're saying, now you're using the kind of a term of a kind of lifeline, and that I want to draw you out on that, because it sounds like what you're saying there is, to do that well, we still are going to need, a woman needs to have these other things. So let me put the question to you this way. Is it a lifeline because a woman saves that corner of herself that she's not all in? What does this lifeline look like? Because I wonder whether one way of seeing the lifeline might actually undermine the whole thing, versus you do need this, quote, lifeline. You do need this other thing. Can we talk to me about what that looks like, if it's really going to be the way that you think it ought to be?
Right. If it's actually rightly ordered. If it's not an escape pod, it's taking you.
Tell us, do you
Yes.
need an escape pod,
Yes.
or how else
Sometimes.
can we think about these personal projects and how they really can be integrated? And it's not just this exercise either in frustration, or an exercise of saying, well, I don't have to really make a holocaust here, right?
I'm
How
holding
do we
back.
think?
Yeah, I'm holding back.
How do we think about that?
I think even before that, there's a first question of basic self-care that especially moms of little kids, it feels like a luxury and indulgence, something as simple as bathing yourself, going and getting a haircut, brushing your teeth day and night. That sounds funny, John, but you've lived this with your wife and also your daughter, seeing like something as simple as caring for your body can require asking another human being to hold the baby, to watch the toddler with the markers. I would like to go to the bathroom without having someone either in the bathroom or trying to get into the bathroom. There's a basic self-care, which I think early on can require saying, I actually asked a mother's helper or a babysitter to come over so I could pay some bills and brush my teeth and make some phone calls, make some doctor's appointments. I had to have another person present. And that's not a pursuit. That's not a personal pursuit of like the heart.
Sure.
That's just basic help, which we don't have without our village. We don't have our village anymore.
Yeah.
We're all isolated in our very American isolation silos homes.
Can I have you pause right there? I just want to say, men need to realize that. Yes. I needed to learn that just already right there, that I'm going to have to be hyper aware. I'm glad you said we don't have a village. Yeah. My wife, maybe in past, she might have had her mother, an aunt or uncle in the home, someone to help. That friend immediately next door who was a different stage in life could come over and help, whatever it was. That's not there. So already there can be a kind of drowning.
It's
just
like dry drowning.
Trying to do the basic thing. And that's a big part of what we're talking about, even kind of prior to, because some mothers might be thinking that right now. Personal projects. I'm just talk to me about basic hygiene and being able to so we have to be thinking here also about a man needs to become aware, because a man getting married has no idea that is going to be demanded of his wife. Or even when he starts to see it, he might think, oh, well, okay, wow, that looks kind of hard. But I don't think it really comes through to him that there's something missing here. This isn't, while a natural plan might call for
Right.
the woman to be really there with the children, a natural plan doesn't demand that she be alone sinking.
Yes.
So I just want to, pardon me for interrupting you.
No, it's great, John.
A man needs to really, that was something I needed to learn, and it
Yeah.
took me too long to learn.
Yeah. Well, it can look
Please
like
go.
I've been working all day long. Let's take Anthony. I've been working in my law office all day long. I've been here for 12 hours. I come home, I'm exhausted. I'm sure you've had the time of your life, Nell. I don't know. You saw friends, you went to a coffee shop, you took the kids to the park, you made them mac and cheese for dinner. Like I'm tired. I'm the one who's been working and I'm tired and I'm like, take the baby. I need to
Yes,
go to the
of
bathroom.
course, of
Take the
course.
baby. I've been with the kids all day long. So uh, for men to be able to see, oh, she wasn't just having the time of her life eating bonbons and watching Oprah. This is really hard. Her basic human needs, like you said, there's not the help built in. There used to be. So just basic needs of hygiene, prayer time, being able to go to mass or adoration, being able to do anything without a little baby on her body is unlikely. And even for us, we just kind of took the approach of I'm always nursing, I'm always holding the baby in a sling. They sleep with us. Our 3-year-old is still sleeping in our bed. They just sleep with us forever. So there wasn't even a physical break. I wasn't pumping and leaving a bottle saying, like, you know what? I pumped. I'm gonna go to adoration. I'm gonna go to a retreat. I'm gonna go pray. It's like, well, I'm going, but I always have the baby with me. If I went on a retreat or if I went and helped with the women's ministry thing, I had the baby with me until they're like one. Didn't leave the baby alone at night. Always had the baby with me, which is so beautiful, but also drowning in plain sight.
Sure.
I just would like a second without someone on my body, needing my body, whether you're bottle or breastfeeding, doesn't matter. Like you're the one who's constantly taken care of. And it's
Yeah,
beautiful. I mean, I'm not saying this because I don't love being a mom. I love babies. Give me
of
15 more,
course.
Lord. I'm over 40, probably not happening, but like give me all the babies. I love babies. But for a husband to see she wasn't having a play date all day long or a coffee
Sure.
mom date. She was trying to keep these people alive. So she probably needs a break. So that is
Yep.
different. And I think for women, you only have one slot. Your husband comes home and you get a half an hour window. Are you going to go and write that book? Or are you going to take a shower and call your mom and cry on the phone? Probably take a shower. You don't have the
Sure.
mental space for even these like higher pursuits of the heart. You're just hoping to brush your hair and not have dreadlocks every time because you didn't brush it the last time. Maybe this
Yeah.
happens to me still.
Yeah.
So there's a prereq
Yeah.
for the pursuits, which is help. But John, many, many, many years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, I saw a friend on the internet because the internet can be, now it's gotten very, I mean, especially Instagram, everything is so curated and everyone's houses look like no one lives in them and their children are never wearing anything. It's like a bizarre, altered universe. But early on in like blogging and social media, there was so much sharing of women,
Hmm.
honestly, and not in a, oh, my house is trashed, it doesn't matter, but like, I'm having this problem. How can we lift each other and support each other? So seeing a friend on the internet, she
Yeah.
shared, I had, she took a picture of herself. She was reading a book like by the ocean in the car. She lived in California. And she said, I hired a babysitter. She had lots of littles like me, lots of littles. Hired a babysitter so I could go and read a book by the ocean. And it had never occurred to me. This sounds so dumb, John, but it had never occurred to me that it wouldn't be a waste of money, that it would actually be a good thing to periodically pay someone while my husband's doing his $1 million, million hours, wish it were $1 million, million hours at work, that I could pay someone so I could go and read a book. Didn't have to
Right.
just be quick, quick, quick. I could get it something. I could have like a moment of leisure as a human person, and that wasn't an indulgence. That might actually be something I needed. It kind of unlocked this opportunity to think, oh, maybe there's something like not just taking a shower. Maybe I could read a book when I had a mother's helper babysitter. Maybe I could do something beyond just trying to survive.
Sure. What a great experience to share, and may this be that moment, perhaps for someone in that situation to recognize the same thing. Slash, always on my mind here as I'm listening is the husband's perspective and the husband's need to see this, and I do have such a kind of intimate personal experience of what I didn't see, and so if I say something that's hard on men, please know that I'm saying it because I'm being hard on myself, and if it doesn't apply to other men, then let's not apply it to other men. But it just seems to me, God grant that at least sometimes, and I'm not saying that Anthony didn't notice this, but maybe at this stage, like me, he didn't have the particular inspiration of, am I being involved here in such a way of either doing something myself or seeing that we do something together to get Nell a helper so that she can go and read. And I just want to say this process of discovery on the wife's part surely, hopefully, will be a mutual process of discovery.
I love
I,
that.
I, I, I do kind of, I'll say in the name of men, I do ask a wife, a woman to be patient and to recognize as it's new for you and you're just discovering it's new for him too. And he might not recognize right away how he coulda, shoulda get involved here
Yeah.
to recognize this really does need to be addressed. So part here, Nell, I almost want to interject and ask you to, whether from personal experiences, you don't have to, or just have any thought on getting your husband involved in helping him see. And again, we kind of have two levels. First of all, and before we talk about the personal projects, it just kind of has to be kind of, again, the basic needs,
Yeah.
but kind of that same principle of how sometimes a woman's going to have to help her husband who hasn't seen yet. I mean, very often I think that's going to be the case, particularly more early on.
Yeah.
Even if he's naturally sensitive and aware and caring, it's just very hard to get it inside his head / really recognize what's going on. Is there a way that a woman can help her husband see that without, and we can see why this will often turn into the classic nagging
Right.
situation, right?
Right.
And a woman's always afraid she's going to be seen as called a nag.
Right.
Could you say something about that angle of not drowning alone? How do you get your husband involved in case just start to see this without it being a complaint?
Yes. I do think that Anthony is particularly suited for this partnership, just in his personality. This is one of those annoying things when women on the internet are like, "Well, my husband already was great." Like he was naturally inclined to say more probably than the normal man. I've been gone all day. What do you need? And often I would say, even when they were little, I would like to take a shower, and then I'd like to work on this essay. Or I was writing a blog post. I was writing a blog post. Can't finish that blog post. So to say and articulate, this is what I need. I need you, and sometimes true, I need you to take the baby, and I'm going in the pantry to eat chocolate chips. Don't come near me. I'm going into the bathroom and locking the door, not because I need to use it, but because I need to be in the one room in the house I can lock the door in. So to say it without feeling like I was either a nag or kind of a whiner or not doing my part, or I should be wearing pearls and a dress and like heels and makeup when he comes home and be like, "Hello, husband, I'm ready to greet you." That wasn't the season of life for that. If there ever is one, me being presentable when he came home and we had lots of little kids, it was not that season of life to even look remotely joyful or presentable. I was exhausted and I was bone tired and I was on the constant verge of like a mental collapse. So if you're listening and thinking, "Wow, this woman shouldn't have had so many kids," mental collapse, I needed what God blessed us with, and it wasn't everyday mental collapse, but to say it is a fragile time for women when they're having many children back to back on their bodies and their minds. So he
Yeah.
was naturally inclined, but also it actually probably took a bigger shift. So our first two very pretty easy deliveries and easy recoveries. The pregnancies were always hard, but pretty straightforward. I mean, back at it pretty quickly, and 2 under 2, and I was pretty fine. And our third delivery, I had so many complications postpartum that I think it was a huge siren for him. Like, oh,
Mm,
she isn't fine. She does have to go back to the doctor again and back to the midwife again. And now we're in PT and now we have all these problems. And our fourth again as well. And our fifth was a planned C-section because of just lots of labor and delivery problems. So I think
mm.
his awareness and husband's awareness can grow as you actually have more challenges. Because when you look pretty good and you're still pretty young and vibrant, you've got a bunch of little kids and you're fine. But then increasingly, when you're postpartum as a mom isn't fine, the world really had to pause. I was re-hospitalized after our third, and he had to take more time off work. He didn't really have paternity leave much at all. It was like, a couple days. I remember his boss saying, "No problem, go back to the hospital with Nell." And me feeling so guilty, like, oh, I have to lose days at work, and him saying, like, "I'm here with you. What are you talking about? I'm not worried about work right now. Like, you have health problems, and I need to be here alongside you." But that is a jarring wake up. So for any husbands who think, "I think my wife's fine," like maybe she is, but especially more babies we're blessed with, often we aren't as fine. We don't bounce back as easily. And that's when I think we started to realize, like, oh, okay, I need more help. I need more help with babysitting, or I need to ask my extended family for more help, or he needs to come home earlier and then maybe work late at night. I can't just be solo flying the ship all the time because my body is kind of giving out on me. It's like the
Yeah.
sad wake up. The body keeps score. The body says no, whatever the
Yeah.
books are.
Yeah.
Truly, when you see your wife very, very vulnerable, and you think, "Gosh, I married this super capable woman. What happened?" Like, well, family life happened, and she's actually very, very much in need for the husband to step up as a man, to be selfless and giving in a new way, like a new level, when
Yeah.
she really isn't fine.
Now, what would you say to a woman who says, my husband's a fine man and he loves
Yeah,
me and he takes care of me, and I think if he really knew, he would do more.
yeah,
But there's a struggle to convey that to him,
right.
and perhaps he doesn't. I mean, that was funny when inside when you said, you hear about someone on the internet just say, "Oh, I've got this perfect husband, perfect husband," but someone right now could be listening to you saying, "Well, great, well, you've got
Exactly.
Anthony."
Yep.
And
Yep.
Anthony is a particularly sensitive person, and
Yeah.
and probably if he needed a cue, when he was given the cue, he probably responded pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And other men are fine men, but they're not going to respond so quickly, or they don't get it, or there's a blockage. There's something in them. Sometimes I think a man becomes slightly terrified and thinks,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh my goodness, this is a problem," but I'm a little bit overwhelmed myself.
Yeah.
This whole thing of holding, doing the work I'm doing and being a husband and father is a bit
Yes.
overwhelming. And the thought that I need to do more, or that even though I'm doing
Yes.
all I can, my wife is still drowning, for goodness sake, it
Yes.
makes him start to go into a little bit of shock, or a little bit of a defensive mode of he just can't really hear more. There's any of 50 reasons
Yes.
a man, the husband, is going to have a problem there. Did you have any suggestion for a
Mm.
woman that's struggling to convey that?
Yes. I think that's, of the women that I hear and talk to all these years of listening to women and sharing their stories with me, that is the predominant complaint. Isn't even the right word, because it sounds like she's complaining.
Yep.
Feedback. I love my husband. He's a wonderful person. He has no concept. He comes home, he's wiped out. I'm more wiped out, but I have to keep going, and I can't convey it to him, or he can't hear it, or it's such a thorn in our marriage that I've stopped asking for the help, but I am still drowning. And it's our marriage is in real trouble now. Like, now we're having some serious problems on many levels. um First, I want to tell, like, that woman, like, you're not alone, and it's not because this is about human nature. This isn't, you're not the problem. It's not your fault that you haven't managed to, like, I heard the woman on the podcast, she said exactly what to say, and I used those words and they didn't work. Like, this is just human nature. We're all we're all sinners, and we're all fallen, and we're all limited in our capacities. So for her to be thinking, shame on me for drowning, I shouldn't need this extra help, or also, I'm so frustrated that he can't hear me, but it must be me, I'm not saying it well enough. This is our post-lapsarian world. So you're not
Yeah.
alone, and it's not your fault. This is part of how life is unfolding. One thing that women have told me that we've talked about, this is very effective for some women, is writing it down, like writing a
Hmm.
loving letter to their husband, or even sometimes a text. Because when you're face to face and you're saying, "I need more help. I'm so frustrated with you. You never do it right with the baby. I try to go to the bathroom and the baby's crying and crying and crying, and you just set her down. And why are you watching that show?" Whatever. The physical in persona interaction can be so fraught with other conflicts. So to think, you know what, I know that before he comes home, I want to give him a heads up, like, "Hey, I'm going to text you and say, when you do get home, just so you know, I've had a really hard day. I'm going to need this thing." Or even for the longer term, to say, "I wrote this letter to my husband. This is like the areas I'm really struggling with." He couldn't hear them. I didn't write this as like a condemnation of him, but I just wanted to tell him like a snapshot of where I am, and I needed to be able to just get it all out and just say it. I had to be able to convey it to him in a way that men's brains process more slowly, right? The corpus callosum firing is different for men. Verbal is often verbal, like immediate real time processing, like you're
Yeah.
doing right now, John, is often harder for men just biologically. So to give them a chance and a breather. And so the writing, the expressing in like a written way, but the other thing is
Yeah. I
trying
love
to,
that. I love that. It's a great suggestion,
it
by the way.
just gives a
Thanks, Nell.
pause. It gives like a, takes the emotion
Yes. Yes.
out of it. And if you're a person who is really quick on your keyboard on your phone, maybe the letter is better. So you're not in like a texting war with your
Yeah.
husband at work.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I've chatted about with women that's very helpful is to try to enlist someone in the man's life to help. Whether that's
Mm,
his dad or his mom or his brother or someone in his life to say, "Hey, I'm having, without betraying any confidences in marriage. Of course, you're loyal to your spouse first, but to be able to say, we're having a hard time in this area. I think he's having a hard time as a new dad, right? He can't fix these problems. So it's more terrifying for him to hear the baby with colic screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming because he can't solve it. He can't fix it. I want to verbally process my day. He has no space in his brain for it. But to involve someone who's a trusted, dear family friend or family member who can kind of say, like, hey, looks like you guys need a little bit extra to be a sounding board for the dad, to kind of check in with him. Can you check in on your son? Can you check in on your friend?
yeah.
We're
Yeah.
having some stuff. We just check in because men also tend to close off. They're not sharing. Women are constantly processing and sharing, most of us. And men are not. You could have an entire football game with your buddy and you never learn that they were divorced. I mean, things like this happen. Not to stereotype men, but like
They say this happen all the time. I assure you.
those are kind of two things that over the years of just chatting with women, those kind of come to mind. Oh, there's one more, John. Your primary verbal processing person as a woman sometimes can't be your husband. And that doesn't mean
Mm,
that you're emotionally connecting, certainly not with another man, or even with like a priest or spiritual director, but with a woman in your life. Again, going to
mm,
that village, you would have your aunt or your mom or your sister,
yep.
and you'd be jawing with her all day long. I can't believe
Yep.
the kids
Yep.
did this.
Yep.
And by the
Yep. Yep.
time that you
Yep.
get to the end of the conversation, you land on like, oh, I wanted to tell my husband this for me, this one thing. I think this kid has some sensory stuff, but I had to talk for
Mm-hmm.
like 30 minutes about all the reasons why, and then I landed on it. For people who
Yeah.
are verbal processors, there's no room in his brain at the end of the day. Not because he doesn't love me. Anthony loves me so much. He loves her kids. He's been thinking all day long. I can't be like, here's an hour for me to go through all these things this person did that maybe they're mad at me. He can't handle it. So to have that
Yeah.
outlet somewhere else
Yeah.
with someone who's appropriate to have an emotional attachment to, like I said,
Yeah.
it takes a little bit of the burden off of, especially those newlywed years. I think sometimes Anthony would say, like, hey, do you need to call your sister? Like, how did you know? Which is his very polite way of being like, of course I want to hear you out, sweetie, but you've been talking about this for 35 minutes. We haven't arrived anywhere. And I think you need to process with someone else. Um,
Uh, no,
yeah.
that list of three is brilliant. I'm just going to repeat what I think I heard. The one is write it down, and convey it. Write a good letter. The second one was go to probably another man in your husband's life and enlist his help. And the others, think about, do you have appropriate outlets yourself, maybe with another appropriate woman, to be sharing and having that opportunity in a way that just helps get a little broader opportunity to get some of it out and process it. And I'm inclined to say I don't think we should see that list as the emergency list. Do you have a big problem that you can't communicate with your husband? I mean, I almost want to say I think all three of those are standard or should be. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we should be having that as part. It doesn't mean we're doing all three every day necessarily.
Right.
Uh, here's today's letter, dear. Um, but
Epistle
but
for
but
today.
but nonetheless, I mean, communication, and there's each of those. I think is so important in recognizing where we are. So thank you for that. It's funny, we've hear them really. I'm thinking in my own mind this discussion, and I do want to take it here right now. Is kind of these these personal projects. And we've, in a sense, we kept find ourselves pushing that back
Yeah.
because of something prior. But I think that will correspond to people's experience, because I think a number of wives might have originally immediately said, particularly if we're talking about the ones that are in the more, all the years are challenging, but that where you're still adjusting, and that can go on a long time. In a sense, it's all our lifelong. There's this personal projects itself might seem a bridge kind of far away, and so we wanted to talk about, I think, some of these other things that are just kind of setting a foundation. But let's return. You think that having some type of personal projects are a very important part that can be well integrated, be a helpful and beautiful part of a devoted wife and mother's life. Can you tell us a little bit more with some specificity or examples of what you think that looks like?
Yes, John. So even moving beyond the self care, the escape pod, the lifeline, really truly to say, God gave me certain things on my heart, certain gifts, certain desires, certain pursuits. And when I am able to step in and explore those, I am more fully myself. I am more fully myself as a wife, as a mother, as a person, as a beloved daughter of God. So if I can step into that identity and understand that I'm His, I'm made in His image and likeness, I am called to give myself completely to God and receive that gift back, right? To be able to give to others, then I have to kind of access that part of myself that makes me me. What makes me uniquely Nell? And for me, that's been primarily throughout all these years. The biggest thing was writing. English major, love writing, love storytelling, love encouraging others in writing, worked for many years in editing and helping curate other women's stories. But writing is something that lights me up. So when Anthony would say, "Hey, I got the toddler, and the preschooler. I've got all 5 kids. We're going to the park. Why don't you go work on some writing? What were you writing on?" When he comes back, however long it is, maybe hopefully a little longer than shorter, when he comes back and I've crafted something or I've been able to convey something or I'm working on something in that creative realm of expression with words, I'm able to face the mountain of dishes and laundry, and I'm able to be
Mm-hmm.
more charitable with my children because I've been poured into and while I'm pouring out constantly. So the writing, Anthony also has always encouraged me with speaking. He really thinks that that's something that God's given me to share. So when people invite me to come and talk about, any variation on identity or motherhood or any of these topics we're talking about today, even if I say like, "Oh, I don't know. I mean, I have to drive across town. It's the winter. It's going to be late at night." He says, "Don't worry about it. You should really do, if you want to, you should really do this." And when I come back and I've been talking with these women afterwards and my face is
Mm-hmm.
full of joy
Mm-hmm.
and I come
Mm-hmm.
home with this radiance, it's because I allowed myself to see, here's something God's put on my heart. I'm responding to it as it comes up. I don't look for things in general. I don't seek things out like this. If they come to me, I try to accept them. And I'm filled up. I'm filled up in a way so I can pour out. So the
Yeah.
pursuits are, they're not, they could be hobbies. They could be something you earn money for. There's a whole range for me. There's things I've done for free. There's things I've been paid well for, but it's something that I really enjoy, writing or speaking or editing or helping strategize for different groups, that I feel more fully myself, and not in a way that I was holding this part back and I need to fill this part up, but because I've been annihilated. I know in radical detachment that all
Mm-hmm.
of the things of the
Mm-hmm.
internet don't matter. These pursuits are not who I am. I am His. I am His beloved. I am His beloved daughter. And if I allow myself to just receive from Him what He's giving to me, whether it's an opportunity or a spark of creativity that I want to work on something or an idea, and I allow myself to receive from God, that sounds really like theoretical, but it's how I'm living it now, John. If I allow myself to receive something and I pour myself into it, I still stay. It's not even like I go away from my family. I'm almost more
Mm-hmm.
deeply within the Sacred Heart in my family because I am more alive. So there are all these prereqs to get a woman to be able
Yeah.
to live this
Yeah.
way, which includes
Yeah.
a supportive family and a supportive husband and being able to take a shower. And like there's a lot of building blocks, but I don't think that being a wife and mother is devoid of who we are and we're just a Stepford wife. I think we're invited to be more ourselves if and as that's possible in our lives.
That formulation right there really strikes me. That it somehow, it seems you're saying it's not distinct from being a wife and mother.
Yeah.
it's integral to it because let me try to say back what I mean. It's just it's a tough thing. We have to kind of keep thinking it
We're
through and ask the Lord
grappling. Yeah.
help us here. But you're called to be a wife and mother as Nell, as a human person. That while in a sense you the whole person that you are a wife and mother, but one brings to being a wife and mother things that are themselves not simply a matter of kind of the obvious things of I must do this to be a wife and mother. There's all these gifts, activities, interests that are part of who you are. Being a wife and mother is always an expression of who you are. So you're not turning away from being a wife and mother. You're not saying, I just, can't give myself completely to mothering. Somehow there's a wholeness. Somehow it is integral, and I think I hear you saying that if you when you see it that way, to the extent we're able to practice this way, and Lord help us to do so, it's more going to renew you and enable it's going to give you that joy. You're not going to feel as though you were bifurcated. You're not going to
Yes.
feel as though you were leaving your husband and children behind. You're going to experience it as I'm being more myself so I can be for them what I want to be. Is that a
Yes.
fair way of saying it?
And John, you're the ultimate synthesizer. Yes.
Well,
Exactly.
I was just synthesizing what you were saying. Tell me something. Now, we could talk about this forever.
Wow.
Well, that was an exaggeration, but we could talk about it for a really long time. The One might say, okay, well, now, gosh, you're blessed with these gifts and these interests that then, when you turn to do those things you're interested in, kind of people are going to turn and notice, wow, and so you kind of have this perfect situation of you'll get accolades. You didn't really have to be hidden anymore because now you get to be recognized and have these brilliant thoughts that the world sees and changes them, which is all happening now. So don't shake your head. No, but I know what you're shaking
John,
your
you're
head
so
at
funny.
because that's not what it's about. I mean, for many, it's not going to look like that. And their personal interests, they might almost feel like, well, is this what we mean by a kind of personal interest or personal project? Just talk to me about kind of the diversity there, and not having our own heads turned towards, well, it's got to look like this. It's got to, for instance, have this public aspect, or it has to have this approval rating aspect. Talk to me about that.
This is an interesting tie back with your family, John. So when I was dating Anthony, I expressed a desire to learn how to play the cello. And I had played piano growing up and done voice, but I had never played a stringed instrument. So he bought me a cello, but at the time we lived very close to your wife's parents in Michigan. And so your mother-in-law, may she rest in peace, may her memory be eternal, and your father-in-law now, were so instrumental in our early marriage. And Mrs. Fed, who taught me cello basics. And she'd get on the phone with like Larissa or one of the girls and be like, oh yeah, I do remember these things. She taught me cello basics. And I've never progressed past book one. That was like
Mm.
17 years ago. Because every pregnancy, you get further and further out. You can't keep playing. It's too hard physically. But I really found that was a great example of something that I love. All our four oldest all play violin. Our oldest has for 9 years. It's
Mm.
just string instruments are part of it because of the Federicas. They're part of our life, part of our family. And I always thought this is a perfect example of I'm not really good at the cello. I practice very sporadically. One kid kicked it with a ball. The sound peg, I need to take it in. That was like a year and a half ago. It's sitting in our music parlor. It's waiting to be picked up again. I'm never going to do it for money. I'm never going to do it at someone's wedding. It's never going to be a side hustle or a side gig. No one who comes to my home is going to listen to me play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Mississippi Stop Stop. It's simply a joyful thing that's
Mm.
just for me. And as my children are learning their first book of Suzuki, I can kind of along with them. No one on the internet knows or cares that I'm a very poor cellist. It's not for anyone else. And I think that this funny notion that our talents are for things to monetize. If you're good at art, you should start an Etsy shop. You should start selling it. If you're a gifted singer, you need to make TikToks and amass an audience and get a record deal. Like, what? What? Why would our interests all have to be monetized? So yes, some of my writing and speaking is publicly shared. A lot of it isn't. And that's my favorite stuff is the stuff that no one gets to hear. The stuff that no one gets to read. That's just for
Yeah.
me to take
Mm-hmm.
delight in. Um, so it is a funny thing today about the public acclaim, like that public twist on everything. But if you are a gardener and your garden is gorgeous like yours is, John, that is a delight for you. If I have friends who from the get-go, they were phenomenal homemakers. I've had to learn a lot of these things, John, and I'm still not
Mm-hmm.
great at a lot of
Sure.
their that was their gift, was pouring into their home and their hospitality and how beautiful things were decorated and all of these things. This is long before Instagram. And I always marveled, like, that's their gift and they're sharing it with me. So the obsession of numbers or stats, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't look at your numbers if you are online and trying to share your passions. I don't check numbers on a lot of things. I write a little Substack. Maybe people open it, maybe people don't. I don't really care. It's probably just my mom and sisters, maybe Anthony. And that's okay because I'm writing it because it's something that I desire to do. God's put on my heart. So as soon as we get the temptation, me included, to get the ego involved,
Yeah.
it's just to recognize the temptation and decline. Like, oh, I'm not going to step into that temptation. Satan, thanks for the invite. No, I'm RSVPing no to this pride party. Don't want to
Yeah.
go there as a person. It just doesn't bring happiness. It just brings hunger and desire for things that we're grasping for and trying to get at and trying to receive by taking, and we can only receive. The only good things are ones that we receive in that way.
That's beautiful, and you've given some great examples there, Nell. And I feel like I want to know, because basically this was implied in what you were saying. I think there's a tendency today to think, well, if I'm going to kind of go do something on my own, kind of that personal project, so much of that immediately makes us think we're going to go online,
Yeah.
and I'm going to say something to other people. And this is a whole topic in itself, but I think, and this is to take nothing away from inappropriate, you know, having that blog or Substack, sharing something with others. At the same time, I wonder whether too many people feel like, well, if I have something worth saying, I've got to say it where the online community is going to hear it, or I need to, be presenting my stuff online. No, it is true. In many ways, that is where we are able to approximate some type of community, and that's very true. But it seems there's, it's funny. When you mentioned that music, great example. You mentioned my garden. I almost wonder whether I would push, just listening and thinking, push people towards, don't don't be too quick to prioritize the kind of digital experience for whatever your particular project is. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. You're free to disagree, or just if you have any just thought on, if we were to make that list, and not that there's any by far any definitive list, but our minds tend today, especially, to go that direction. And I wonder whether, for that very reason, we ought to be encouraging one another. Kind of, don't forget the ordinary. Don't forget the things that aren't where aren't what maybe normally people would have been saying is their top 5 ways that they would express that personal project. I don't know. Any quick thought there, Nell?
You know, the best things are often just for us or those we love. And there's almost a dilution that can happen and a weird commoditization of vulnerability. It's like all these videos of people crying.
Yeah.
And hey, if like there's a poignant moment you wanted to share, I'm not saying you shouldn't cry recording yourself. It's not a bright line rule, but some things are just for us. And to share something and then see if it got a good reaction and then delete it later because you didn't like the response you got. I've done that throughout the years. Oh, I didn't like that. I didn't get a good reaction. Oh, but I thought it was so profound. Better be more profound next time. Like, it's just some things are to savor and not to be diluted through digital sharing. And to move. I think anytime we're trying to move with the Holy Spirit, we're trying to be docile to his promptings. There's so many things we need to do to get ready to be docile, right? We need to try to go to confession often, receive the Blessed Sacrament often, and examine where we are in our life, and then writing or speaking or sharing from a place that isn't right on the cusp of exactly what happened, lifetime processing everything in our lives, but we've had some time for reflection, and maybe there's a nugget to share, but to allow ourselves that privacy almost. I mean, John, there are parts of your garden that you have an incredible yard. You haven't shown us all of that. You're sharing like something about like, here's a tip of the thing, like here's
Yeah.
something beautiful. But
Yeah.
not like, let me document every moment I've spent in here. And you have a gorgeous property. You're
Sure.
not sharing for the sake of boasting. You're sharing when there's something specific to be shared.
Right.
But to like have to almost respect ourselves, me included, to respect ourselves enough to just take a beat. If something's really beautiful and you want to share it, even take it to prayer and ask the Holy Spirit, is this what you want me to share? Am I sharing it because I hope it gets a lot of likes and views? Am I trying to play the algorithm, or am I sharing it because, hey, this might help one person? Great.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts or suggestions for of a woman, or I mean, again, I hope the men listening will recognize that seeing this about your wife is central to your relationship. It's not peripheral. It's not just, oh, well, oh, okay, yeah, gosh, I could get some points here, or that would make her
Yeah.
happy, or yeah, I got to get that. I mean, this really is so. We need to understand one another, and it just certainly my own experience, and that's why I was so excited to talk about this with you. I'm so thrilled to hear the things that you're sharing, because and there's so much more. It just makes me want to talk more, but we all need to work together on this. The issue of the kind of oblation of a wife and mother's life, and what she needs to be able to do that well, and the kind of accompaniment that she needs, and the understanding and the encouragement, and then the concrete help. But do you have any kind of final concrete suggestion for a woman in encouraging her in this area of, you do need to have those kind of what we call personal projects, and kind of going about doing that?
I think there are two things. The first one is to process, and the second thing is to ponder. So process with the people in your life that you process, to kind of take that personal inventory. I do feel like a shell of a person right now. I do feel like I need more prayer time. I need to make a regular holy hour. I need to go read a book in a car overlooking the ocean. Let's go to the ocean, John. To process and figure out how, and it changes season to season. It changes child to child. Your hormones are going like this. So it changes moment to moment, but processing, and give yourself permission. That's not complaining or not being grateful. That's trying to make sense of this new life that's happening to you and what God's calling you to. And the second thing is to ponder. You're so uniquely made that what God has given to you and is inviting you to can only be heard in the silence of your heart. You can get a lot of insight, like insight and input in the processing stage, but you have to have the pondering stage where you're really paying attention to the stirrings of your heart. And maybe it's in the middle of the night when you're up with a kid who's sick, or, feeding, but to create that time that doesn't involve the internet, it doesn't involve anything online, it doesn't involve scrolling or digital time. You're really trying to model after Our Lady, and to ponder in your heart, staying close to the sacraments, being available to those graces, and see where He's moving you, because He's not going to steer you wrong. We will steer ourselves wrong all day long. But if you can create that space and allow Him to come and teach you how to ponder in that space, you will know where to go and know what to
Mm,
seek that will fulfill you as a person in the context of your family.
that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. No, well, then, and I know you wouldn't refer to it because it's not central to who you are, but you do have a gift, and you're being a gift to others in sharing reflections on these kind of things. Is there anything in particular that you would point someone to, where you're sharing some things in a publicly available way that they might be able to benefit from?
My favorite is I do write a Substack, just a free essays a couple times a month. So if they just look up Nell O'Leary Substack, they can find that. I have a paid thing, but it's only for people who want to contribute more. And I do like more in depth, like what's going on in the home. But the long form essays are always free, and they always will be. So if people want to partake, I love hearing what happens in people's hearts when we have these big conversations through the written word. So Thanks for giving me an opportunity to share that, John.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll definitely put that in the notes. Now, I feel like we just began the discussion, but in any case, in God's great providence, this was a gift to me. And I hope that it might be a gift to others. So many, many thanks for taking the time.
Oh, thank you, John. What a joy. What a gift. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks for tuning in this episode of The Intentional Household. If you've enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and leave a rating or review. If you have any topic requests, please send them to lifecraftgroup@gmail.com. For our Wednesday reflections, free courses, reading groups, and live events, please visit life-craft.org.